Hello and welcome to Capitol Hill. I'm Lyndall Curtis. One down, 4 to go. The federal government now has Tasmania on board with the school funding reforms, adding that state to New South Wales, South Australia and the ACT. It's optimistic but not certain the holdouts will accept what is on offer before the extended deadline. What seems more certain is caucus support for the Prime Minister's move to have party members involved in the selection of the federal leader. Joining me to discuss the day are Liberal MP Alan Tudge and Labor MP Stephen Jones. Welcome to you both.
G'day Lyndall, g'day Stephen.
Good afternoon, Lyndall.
We'll go first to Labor reform, and it looks like caucus is on board with agreeing to give up their control over the selection of the Labor leader.
This is good news for all school children. What we will see through this arrangement is individual attention for the needs of children in schools, and indeed for children who need it most, and for children who are excelling. This will provide more resources so they can fulfil the opportunities that they could indeed achieve.
That was actually Bill Shorten talking about the education funding reform, so we may as well start there. Stephen Jones, is it a surprise to you that Tasmania took so long to come on board with the education funding changes?
Well, no, it's not. They wanted to ensure that they had every I dotted and every T crossed. But what I can say, this is great news, Lyndall, for 81,000 school children in Tasmania. They are going to see a significant increase in the funding delivered to their schools, over 4.5%, closer to 4.7% from the Commonwealth Government, over 3% increase from the Tasmanian Government. This will ensure that schools in Tasmania and right around the country have the resources to deliver a first-class education. It's what we need if we're going to be a smart, clever and prosperous country into the future.
Alan, you pay great attention to education matters. You're also from Victoria. What, as you understand it, are the things that are stopping Victoria from signing up?
Well, I think Victoria has looked closely at the federal budget, and the federal budget shows that over the next 4 years, school funding is actually cut by $325 million. And so they're concerned that while there might be a promise of rivers of gold in year 5, 6 and 7, 2 elections away, in the short term, next year, the year after, they're not convinced that the money is actually there.
But weren't those reforms always going to start slowly and ramp up?
Well, that not according to the Gonski review itself. I mean, Gonski said that we need $6.5 billion per annum in order to reach the so-called national resource standard. Now, for Tasmania, that would equate to about $300 million extra per annum. Now, what Lara Giddings and the Prime Minister have announced today is $380 million over 6 years. So my question is, where's the other money? Where's the rest of the money, the $300 million per annum, not $380 over 6 years?
Stephen, is it a lack of money stopping the other states and the Northern Territory from signing up?
No, absolutely not. And to accept Alan's argument, and let's not forget, Alan's a cheer squad for the status quo. They think the situation is fine just now. That's what Tony Abbott says. That's what Chris Pine says. They're in a minority of 3 on that, I can tell you. But to accept Alan's argument, you'd have to believe that Barry O'Farrell's a mug and that every other state leader around the country is a mug and that they've signed up for getting less money than they were previously receiving. You'd also have to accept that all the Catholic education leaders around the country are mugs as well.
They haven't signed up, Stephen.
That is what Alan is trying to get you to understand.
Stephen, they haven't signed up.
It's simply not true. It's simply not true. The Catholic Education Office is keen to sign this deal, keen to have it done so that it can be in place for the next calendar year. And that is why New South Wales have signed up, it's why Tasmania have signed up, it's why the other states around the country can and should sign up, because they know it's going to deliver more money to them.
Lyndall,
I might disagree with him on many things, but he's not a mug. He's not a mug. He knows he's getting more money, and so do the non-government schools. They know this means more money into their system. That's why they'll sign.
Alan, under your policy, you would keep the existing system for a year if you win government. What happens after that?
Well, then we'd be able to make some small changes to this system to improve some of the issues which people have identified. But can I correct?
What issues would you be looking at tackling?
Before answering that question, though, can I correct Stephen? Stephen, the Catholic Education Commission has not signed up to the Gonski reforms. None of them have, nor have any of the independent schools authorities. In fact, just a week ago, the Independent Schools Association of New South Wales said that 63 schools in low SES areas would be worse off under the current proposals on the table. That's just in New South Wales alone. The Archbishop of Parramatta...
So let me put it to you, Alan. If they do sign up,
I've said this before on this program.
You had your go, Stephen. You had your go.
I've said this before on the program. If you talk over each other, then the audience can't understand whatever you say. Alan, if I could get an answer to my question, after the first year under your proposals, what issues would you be looking at addressing?
We would be happy to sit down with the sector and work through any small matters which they have, which they think that can be improved. But fundamentally, we think that the system is reasonably okay, bearing in mind that no system of school funding is perfect. But what we do guarantee is that every single school across the country will have an increase in school funding. And typically, our increases have been 5 to 6% per annum. Now, Stephen just said in Tasmania it was 4.5% per annum, which they were talking about. So even in Tasmanian government schools, they would have an increase compared to what Labor is offering presently, let alone with the Catholic and independent schools, who, as I was just saying, the New South Wales Independent Schools Association 1 week ago said that low SES schools, 63 low SES schools would have their funding cut under the government's own proposals. The Archbishop of the Diocese of Parramatta has said a similar thing.
Stephen, one final question to you on this subject. Do you need to have all the states and territories and the Catholic and non-government schools on board by the end of this week?
We need to have them on board if we're to deliver a uniform and equitable system for all schools and all kids around the country. And it would be bloody mindedness if those state holdout premiers didn't agree to that. But no, we don't need to. We should not be making the kids in New South Wales schools, in Tasmanian schools, in ACT schools, in South Australian schools, we should not be holding them ransom because of the bloody mindedness of premiers
Stephen, please.
in New South Wales, in Queensland, in Victoria, in Western Australia. We'll deliver to the schools where the premiers have put their money where their mouth is, where they have signed up, but we should not be holding them ransom because other state premiers around the country are playing politics and being bloody minded about it.
We will move on now to the issue of reform inside the Labor Party, and there does appear to be support in caucus to give up their sole right to elect the leader.
I've always supported party reform, and I think that electing the leader through a different mechanism is something that has to happen.
We have here a commitment across the Labor movement, to produce a great transformation of Australia. And that's what this is about. It's not about whether or not this person or that person gets any particular benefit out of it. It's about the Australian people.
Stephen, has Kevin Rudd effectively presented the caucus with a fait accompli that, if it had existed in either 2010 or this year, would have seen those leadership changes not happen?
Oh, look, I disagree. You know, this is a matter that's been under discussion in the New South Wales branch of the party for over 2 years now. It enjoys my wholehearted support. It has been warmly received by rank and file members around the country. I believe it'll be warmly received by the caucus. Yes, there'll be a debate about the issue, but I'm confident that it'll be endorsed. I think every single Labor Party member around the country is going to say this is a great opportunity for us to reinvigorate the party and to ensure that we deepen the democratic principles inside the party. So I think it's going to enjoy a lot of support, and there'll be a lot of people who'll rejoin the Labor Party or consider joining the Labor Party because of it.
Alan, as I understand it, under changes in the British Conservative Party some years ago, the members of the Conservative Party now directly elect their leader from candidates chosen by the parliamentary members. If other Conservative parties do it, why wouldn't the Liberal Party do it in Australia?
Well, I'm not aware of the precise details of the Conservative Party in the UK, but there isn't a need at the moment in the Australian Liberal Party for this to occur. I mean, bear in mind, we have never assassinated one of our Prime Ministers in our entire Liberal Party history.
But you've changed plenty of leaders.
We've changed leaders in opposition. In opposition we do, but we've never assassinated a Prime Minister like the Labor Party has.
You come from Victoria.
Now, I don't believe your proposals cover state jurisdictions, do they, Stephen? They cover federal ones, and the federal level, we've never assassinated this. But can I just make this one point, though, about Labor's proposals here? I mean, I find it astounding that the very first concrete decision which Kevin Rudd makes as Prime Minister is not to reduce cost of living pressures, it's not to stop the boats or get the debt under control, but is to save his own bacon. I mean, it is classic Kevin Rudd, where it's all about Kevin. And while other people are concerned about them losing their jobs, Kevin's just concerned about his own job. And I think the Labor Party needs to start focusing on the Australian people, not just themselves.
Stephen, one final question to you on this matter. Can I just ask you, why did this need to be done at this time? And as far as you're aware, does this need to be endorsed by a national conference?
Well, it needs to. Caucus is the master of its own destiny. Caucus determines its rules, subject to the broader rules of the Labor Party. I'm confident that it will be endorsed by caucus and therefore become the new rules of the caucus operating into the future. Can I answer the question that you asked Alan? Lyndall, there's one very good reason why the Liberal Party won't adopt this process, because Tony Abbott knows that the overwhelming number of members of the Liberal Party would elect Malcolm Turnbull as the leader if they had a democratic membership-based endorsement process. That's why they won't introduce it.
If I could get you to answer my question, why does this need to be done now?
Well, I think it's for two reasons, as the Prime Minister set out in his press conference yesterday. First, because it's important that we continue to renew and ensure we have democratic processes, deepen the democratic processes within the party. But secondly, you know, you'd have to be denying the obvious if you said that a lot of what's gone on in terms of the party processes over the last 3 years have not been pretty. People want to see an end to it. People want an assurance that the Labor Party leader that they elect going into election will serve a full 3-year term. And that's what this rule guarantees.
Can't the Labor Party for once just focus on the Australian people rather than themselves?
Alan, if I could get your comment on the latest opinion polls, are you worried by the initial signs we've seen in the polls that the change to Kevin Rudd has improved Labor's stocks?
We have always thought that the polls are going to tighten, whether that be under Julia Gillard, Kevin Rudd or Bill Shorten. And in all federal elections, it's always within the margin, 51, 49, 52, 48. So we've always expected this, and certainly when a party changes leader, they tend to get a sugar hit, and that's what I think we're seeing now.
Stephen Jones, just very quickly, because we're about to run out of time, MPs say that voters are now engaged. Is the trick now for the Labor Party to get them to listen to what you have to offer?
Well, I think they are listening. I think it's game on, and I think for the first time in a long time the scrutiny is on both sides of politics. Tony Abbott with an empty in tray when it comes to policy, and Kevin Rudd with the energy and the full unity of the Labor team behind him.
What's Kevin Rudd announced other than looking after himself? He saved his own job but not concerned about Australians losing their jobs.
When you've got nothing to sell yourself, you bag the other guys. You've got nothing to sell yourself, so you're hopping into us, mate.
And that's where we'll have to leave it. Stephen Jones and Alan Tudge, thank you very much for your time.
Lyndall. Thanks, Stephen.
And thank you for joining Capitol Hill. Please be with us at the same time tomorrow. Good night.